You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Welcome back to the KCSN Draft Show. It is so close. We are 8-9 days out from the NFL Draft. I cannot wait. We got a lot of stuff fun planned today. Cannot wait to talk to my pals. Eric, Galko, what's good?
What's going on? We're almost there. I always forget when I do this show that like the draft's coming to you guys. Like you guys aren't going to the draft. Like you're just gonna like pull up and just have your famous Kansas City barbecue and like wait till the end of the first round for the Chiefs to draft. So it's exciting.
Yeah, dude, we can't wait. Like, yeah, the city's already buzzing. I was downtown on Sunday, and it's already getting hyped. Maddie Lane, hi. I get to see you in 8 days.
This is true. I do have to come to the draft, but that's okay. It's fine. I get to come hang out with Craig, and Eric doesn't want to come out there and hang out with us. That's all right.
No.
He's decided he's had enough of us virtually, so he doesn't want to come hang out with us.
Jesus Christ. Jeez, guys, once a week is fine. That's enough. 3 days to draft.
I'm excited for the draft to start. Like I said, we're now. I think I talked about it last week. You're kind of to that point where you really want to fast forward through this and just get to the draft. Now it's kind of starting to get fun again. We're having all these fun rumors flying off. Vegas doesn't know what to do with all their betting lines. Like, this is the chaotic week, and then starting this weekend or in the next week, then like you start to get, I don't know about want to say real rumors, but you get some more, good information that comes out between them. So it's kind of like an exciting time right now.
Yeah, it's like you get this just slow dead period where everybody's slogging through, and all of a sudden it's just you're drinking from a fire hose with all the rumors, information, everything just flying around. It's a lot of fun. We are going to go over the safety class today, and we're also going to do a segment called Eric Galko Hosts the Show. And I can't wait for it. I am so excited. But we're going to go through the safety class first. We're going to talk about it. I know, if you're a Chiefs fan, you probably haven't been paying a ton of attention to the safety class as much as some of the other positions, just because, the Chiefs have, they brought back 3 of the safeties from last season and added Mike Edwards. So you're probably not looking too closely at the safety class relative to some of the other positions. But,
I mean, they're hard to watch. They're off the screen. Like, I can't see them. Do they really exist? Like, are they actually doing anything?
Oh, so you're a broadcast view watcher. Got it.
He's out on himself. That's tough, Maddie.
Wait a second. Wait, I'm going to tell Catapult on you if you...
Oh.
Be careful, buddy.
Oh. Anyways, we are going to talk about the safety position here today and kind of just look through them a little bit. We kind of always start the show with this. I'm just kind of curious, Galko, your opinion on how many safeties wind up going round one. We are counting Brian Branch as a safety. So do we think Brian Branch goes in round one? Do we think anybody else outside of Brian Branch?
No, I mean, if I was to set the odds in Vegas, it'd be either, 0.5 at a pretty high, whatever else, or 1.5 pretty low too. I don't see anybody else getting in there at safety. As much as I'd like to be like, this guy could be a wild card, it feels like the next group of safeties is about 2 or 3 guys, and they'll all come up the board in mid-round too. But Branch, I wouldn't say a lock, but it feels pretty likely there are 2 or 3 teams. And he's a classic guy that's like, he's going to fit in any playoff team. He's going to be a different guy, but like Antoine Winfield Jr. type impact as a rookie. And it's hard to just not take that guy in round one. So I think he'll go. Feel pretty confident in that, but it'll be just him.
And yeah, I mean, the versatility, he played a lot in the slot, obviously for Alabama. So you already walked in the NFL with a little bit of experience there. I have no doubt that he can play safety if asked to, and certain parts, at least of playing safety. You're probably not going to slap him back there and ask him to play as a center fielder and get sideline to sideline, but he can do everything you're going to ask. And I think I saw one of the craziest stats was Pro Football Focus has they rank their missed tackle percentage and stuff like that. And since they've been doing it, his missed tackle percentage this past year was the best they've ever charted, not just out of safeties, but out of linebackers or safeties. And it shows up. I mean, he is a really good tackler. And there's one position that just making sure you get guys on the ground that kind of matters. It is safety.
Yeah.
Oh, I just it's interesting that you kind of brought up Antoine Winfield because there is, I think, some similarities. I think he's a little bit more souped up, just like you said, you talk about some of the tackle consistency, but I think you're looking at, hey, the guy's not a great athlete. Obviously didn't test through the roof there, but just consistent, solid, smart, high level communicator, physical, willing tackler, all these things that you're kind of talking about here, just elite instincts. Those are guys, you're right. Antoine Winfield went 45. I believe there was some medical stuff that might have pushed him down a little bit farther, if I remember correctly, with the shoulder or something like that, right? I think Brian Branch goes round one somewhere. I just think he's just too good of a football player.
The last piece on Branch too is that, not to make a basketball comparison, but like no matter what your defense is, he's gonna fit in naturally. He's not gonna be like your ace. You need a good corner or a free safety or a linebacker to kind of like make him do his thing. But he's gonna be this specialist that can be, again, different than Winfield. Is more of a safety than a corner. Winfield's more of a corner playing nickel too, but impact guy, not gonna miss tackles, not gonna make mistakes, can cover a slot, can cover a tight end, can finish as a run defender. You can be out there with two linebackers and he's your third linebacker, strong safety nickel, and you're okay. So I think for all those reasons, the Jaguars been linked because Trent Baalke loves the Bama SEC guys, but I think a lot of teams in that 20 to even the early 30 range would be interested.
I like it. Maddie, I'm going to ask you, who's your safety too?
Oh boy. Does it matter? No. Okay. I kind of like I like Sidney Brown out of Syracuse. I like the athleticism he has. He's a little bit limited. Like, you're going to play him up near the box. You're maybe going to match him up with tight ends that are hopefully not as athletic as Sam Laporta, because he gave him the business a little bit when they matched up against Iowa. But like, I don't love the safety class overall from top to bottom. And like, I just kind of like the physicality, the aggressiveness he plays with downhill, and it's just the athleticism. When I'm dealing with a safety class that I don't think, like I said, is that great, just give me the guy that's probably the best athlete. We'll try to find a way to fit him in there. I feel like you're drafting a lot of third safeties anyway that are going to play a specific role. And I have a pretty good idea how I'm going to play Sidney Brown if he was on the football team. So like, I think that's where my safety 2 ended up settling up, mostly because Christopher Smith's athletic testing was so bad. I loved it watching Christopher Smith out of Georgia on film, but like, man, he couldn't run. And like, that is concerning at safety.
So Galko, I want to ask the same question to you. Who's your safety 2?
I love J.L. Skinner. He's a guy we've had a super high grade on since before the year. I know some ups and downs. Obviously got hurt in the draft process, and that hurt him too. But I've seen him do both strong and free stuff in college. He has a solid sideline range. Again, he's just a pretty rare guy, right? He's 6'4" as a safety, but can move well. I think he can match up a little bit. And I think he's him for me of like, hey, because he's so long and he's a pretty damn good athlete, that he can make mistakes and still be a capable safety. I think there's still a ceiling for him too. So I think he's, in my opinion, arguably maybe the best safety in the whole draft. That's much we like him, depending on what you need. But for us, he's a clear 2. But I think to give Maddie credit, I believe Sidney Brown will be the second safety taken in the draft. And even though I think NFL teams can agree with you, Maddie, like, hey, there's a lot of guys that are more situational guys, third safeties. History tells us how many safeties are going to get drafted in the top 100, even in a bad draft on the low end. And there's not enough guys, right? Tackle and safety are two positions that like supply demand. There's not enough supply for the demand, and we'll see a lot of those guys get pushed up. I think Sidney Brown could go as early as like the late 30s, early 40s in round 2, because teams really need a safety. So I think we'll see 2 or 3 go in round 2 and maybe a drop off in round 3 because teams want to get their guy before it goes down.
This is just a weird sidebar, but it's just so interesting to hear things like that where Sidney Brown could go in the late 30s, and you're just like looking at stacking. Like people keep joking about like 10 through 60, and it's just so true.
Yeah,
like you're just gonna see some just scattershot, different positions all over, 20 to 60, or 10 to 60. I genuinely buy it because like you're right. I mean, you're right. Like all the logic is sound for that. I wouldn't necessarily like. Maybe I think there's probably going to be players I like more on the board than Sidney Brown, but like how teams are starting to, where teams start taking different guys in different positions.
Very easy to talk. You need a safety. He's a great person. He's a great athlete. He had a great process. Like at worst, you reached, but if he ends up starting for you, then who cares if it's 35 or 55, right? So like I think that's why teams are like, hey, Sidney's the guy that can fit our defense. That's why I think he'll be 2. But it'll be him, J.L. Skinner, and Jair Brown will all be the next safeties. And then after that, our guy Javarius will get more players too. But those feel like the 3 that'll be in that second round area. And after that, maybe it'll be a drop off for teams.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. I'm glad you brought up J.L. Skinner because of all the people I've talked to, you've definitely been the highest on him. Yeah. And you kind of laid out your logic on, thinking about him. And it's true, like just the measurables, the unique measurables, size, length, athleticism, like that's checking a lot of boxes in. That can make a big impact on the back end of a secondary. I'm going to be fascinated to see where he does wind up going. You brought up Jair Brown. What do you like about what do you like about Jair Brown?
Just makes plays, and I think the instincts match up. And I think sometimes we look at ball production, right? Which I get mad sometimes when I hear scouts about ball production or sack production. Like, hey, there's more context to it. But I think for Jair, it matches up. And I've talked to Jair multiple times. Like he was going to come to the Shrine Bowl, and he ended up not doing that to kind of get ready for the draft process. But like we talk ball, we talk film, and like he's that kind of guy. And I think he's someone talking about a quarterback, you kind of just get a feeling like, all right, this guy actually knows what the heck he's talking about and doing. He's not just running an offense. Jair's kind of like that. I think his Penn State teammates felt the same way. We had a couple of teammates at Penn State at the Shrine Bowl I talked to about that. I think the instincts and the confidence kind of match up. And it's one of those things where JL Skinner, as a comparison, can make way more mistakes and still be fine. I think JR has a smaller window because he's not as good of an athlete. But someone to a quarterback like Brock Purdy or a lot of those guys, like he's just so confident and knows what he's doing that he's going to keep making plays in the NFL. So some teams think, hey, he's going to be more of a guy that we want to see if he works out for us, whatever else. But I feel good about him being a starter. I think he'll go in that round 2, if not early round 3 area. But I like the instincts. It's overused sometimes, but I think he's probably the only safety, maybe only DB in the whole class, who I think his instincts is truly a strength because it matches up with what he's talking about and what he's actually looking for.
I mean, Brown for me it's a guy kind of that I struggled to put through there because you hear all the stories similar to what you're just saying, where he understands what he's talking about. The instincts are there. And I think you see that on tape, but then you kind of hit the nail on the head. His margin of error is a little bit smaller. And I thought a lot of times he moving at full speed, I thought he really struggled to like throttle down and change direction. So I saw him miss quite a few tackles, just not being able to come to balance or to stick to a hard break that he thought was coveted. I don't like to call out a specific play, but when you get shook by Payne Durham, like that kind of sticks with you. That's just not sometimes like the most athletic tight end. And so just little things like that kind of stuck with me. So like I do see a smaller margin for error. So I struggle with that, but being someone who doesn't get to talk to him and see him on the whiteboard, like that does change entirely what you're saying. If you can sit there and tell me like, oh no, I understand everything that's happening here and why I missed this, that matters a lot. So he's one of those guys that I could definitely see the NFL liking based on the ball production and his IQ and stuff like that. Just is a little bit harder to watch and just see on film, a guy that I fell in love with as a starting safety based on that, the athleticism concerns that I had.
And at times it almost feels like he doesn't completely understand his like for me personally, there's a couple of times I didn't feel like he completely understood his physical limitations. Like he's flying around, like you talk about like instincts and breaking on the ball and driving on the football a little bit, but he's not coming as much controlled to the point of contact to, where the play needs to be made. And he's just a little bit, I don't want to say, it kind of comes off at times like he's a little bit too much of a gambler at times. Yeah. And like I think that's one of the things I kind of pay attention. Like you say, okay, so this guy's flying around like a chick with his head cut off. It almost looks like that sometimes, but it's just probably true. It's just instincts with maybe needs to understand his athletic limitations a little bit better is maybe the best way I can put it.
Yeah. Run defending is definitely something he has to get better at. That was definitely a weakness on film, and not being a plus athlete is limiting there too. But he's, again, for some teams, he's a third safety, but very high floor. Like he's going to be on an NFL roster and be part of a rotation, and if he ends up starting, all the better. But I get, like I said, it's kind of a lackluster safety class. I think teams feel pretty confident with him.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Whether you're a Chiefs, Royals, Sporting KC, KC Current, K-State, KU, or Mizzou fan, we've got you covered. Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Kansas City, the NFL draft is almost here. It's a fantastic time for our city. Make sure you're staying locked into us here at KC Sports Network because we've got the draft covered. Chiefs have 10 picks. We'll see how many they actually use, but there's one selection that every football fan can share, and that's an ice-cold Miller Lite. The players change, the coaches change, the rules change, but Miller Lite is still the perfect beer for draft time, game time, and everything in between. Personally, when I want a beer with some flavor, but it's also light and won't make me feel bad, Miller Lite has been a go-to. It's light on calories, not taste. What's the point of drinking beer if you can't taste it? Till kickoff comes around again, enjoy the beer that tastes like the season. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/KCSN. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching. Appreciate everybody that's been hanging out here at KC Sports Network. We appreciate all your support. We got so much stuff going on during draft weekend. We are going to be live every single day on the KCSN YouTube channel for every single pick of the 2023 NFL Draft. Cannot wait. Going to be a lot of fun. Eric Galko will not be there because he does not like us.
I will say, Kent, I've checked on flights, last second flights. I have not 100% ruled out, just like 99% ruled out. But
Okay, I'll believe it when it's
bullying's working right now, so we just got to keep up.
Yeah, we just got to keep bullying him, and then good things will happen.
I'm a big bully your friends, guys. I'm a big bully your friend. Big fan bully.
Absolutely.
Keep bullying me. That's what I need.
We got Tucker to set a parody account up like a week within the last week. So now we just got to get Galko to burn his hard-earned money on a flight to Kansas City. Let's talk more about the safety class, though. We are kind of just going up and down and looking at this board, and we kind of talked about some of the guys that are, looking, day one, early day two. But, again, you had some quality safeties there at the East-West Shrine Bowl. I'd love to kind of talk to you about a little bit. Jervarius Owens is a guy I'd kind of want to hear, your opinion on right off the top.
Yeah, I think he's will be our top safety drafted. I think he'll go. I don't think he'll go late day two. I know two teams have him kind of graded in that area. Again, that's the only thing they go that area. They usually go probably the round after, or if not later on too. But just super well liked by teams. And I think he had a really good 2021 season when that defensive back group was a little bit more cohesive and better. I think this year, again, it's always important. I think DB units, almost like offensive line, where like when you're not in sync, one guy can look really bad. And that's not always his fault. I think Jervarius took a bigger role this year, and there's some mistakes on film that I think if you actually kind of know what they're doing, it's not as big of an issue there too. But outside of some run defending stuff and maybe some misreads, like I think he's a complete safety, and he's probably one of the 4 or 5 guys that when we invited and announced him, I probably got like 7 texts being like, "That's my guy that I love in my area." So I think he's really well liked by NFL teams. Complete safety, can play both spots, can play cover 2, can come down the box and make a play as a run defender. Again, a little bit inconsistent there, but can get better at it, has the length. I think he goes somewhere early day 3, and I think he's my favorite of the Shrine Bowl guys to probably have an immediate impact because he'll be drafted the right spot, but also as a plug-and-play kind of guy.
Well, and I think that's key when we're talking about the safety group, and we've said it a few times. I don't want to keep like driving it home like Kent was pre-show, but it's not the best safety class, right? And so when we're sitting here and you say somebody like Owens can go out there and play all the roles, for safeties, there's countless different things you can do, but to simplify it, you got deep coverage, and then you got man coverage, and then the run defense, a guy that shows that he can do all 3 of those. And like that matters. Owens is one of the few safeties in this class that has experience that you could point out the positives and the ways he was kind of like weaponizing all those roles. It's like you very clearly see a role for him going to the next level, whether it's as a starter or again, it's like a third safety to where you insert in and he has that versatility to let other guys move around. That kind of stuff I think goes a long way when you're talking about the safety position, especially in today's NFL where all these different, too high Fangio level systems are just shifting guys pro snap, pre snap, and all over the place. That kind of stuff matters. And if teams are comfortable with him filling in all those roles, it's kind of like we talked about with offensive linemen. You can play 5 spots. That matters a lot. You can do all 3 roles as a safety. That matters a ton.
Nailed it.
I know you brought up Art Green last week as a guy that might be a corner convert, but do you think that he's a safety on a lot of teams' boards still?
Yeah.
That's the teammate. That's Jervarius Owens' teammate, by the way. Art.
Yeah, he and I think corner, he looks the part. He's long, he's a skinnier guy. He can play a little press. He just was inconsistent at corner this year. But again, I think I mentioned it last week too. He played safety at the Hula Bowl, and he was really good there. And Art has done wonders because he played well at the Hula Bowl at safety, played well at the Shrine Bowl at safety. So teams were like, all right, it's not just like 1 or 2 practices. And then he tested like a freak, which we already expected. Like he's gone from a guy that teams thought was a training camp corner to a team told me like maybe he goes in the 4th, like 5th, 6th round draft pick. So credit to Art, awesome kid. Maybe in the long run, corner wasn't the best spot for him. He played safety at Houston his whole career. Who knows what happens? But yeah, the combine testing, the length is pretty hard to find too. So he's like, I hate to say locked to be drafted. I'm like that to be there, but I'd be really surprised based off the feedback I've heard that like if he's not picked, just what I know of those teams do. And I think Jordan Howden of Minnesota at the Shrine Bowl, he's feeling he's going to get picked. I have a good sense of what team. I'm not going to say which team, but one team really likes him a lot more than everybody else. I think he's going to go to that team in the 4th, 5th round. Christian Izzy well liked. So we had a good group of safeties that I think have benefited from the Shrine Bowl, but to give them more credit, a lot of those guys have crushed the draft process beyond the Shrine Bowl to give them a lot of credit. And I think Izzy and Art Green, Howden, all those guys did a really good job.
I really enjoyed talking to Izzy when we were out there in Vegas. He was a good guy to sit down and get to talk to. And then I think the day after we talked to him at practice, and it was an accident because you're not trying to level somebody out there, but he actually ran like straight through the chest of one of the wide receivers.
Yeah. I had to talk to Christian. I was a little worried. He's trying to get a job, and I love it. And I think he's physical, and those Rutgers guys have a history of being physical, and he showed it. But I think again, no one got hurt, thankfully. But he's he was not holding back in the Shrine Bowl practice. I loved it.
I'm glad you brought up Christian. Oh, you go, Maddie. Continue. I'm sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
No, go for it. If you've got
the floor is yours. The floor is yours, Kent.
He was one of the more enjoyable players to kind of watch leading into the Shrine Bowl process too. Like he kind of captured your attention a little bit. You know, he's got some slot ability. Like he's gonna get down there and play in the slot. He's tough. He's competitive. He's physical. He's not the biggest guy. You know, he can make some plays on the football a little bit, but like there's a lot to like about him. Drafted. I mean, do we think Christian Izien is getting drafted? Yeah. All said and done.
I think the 1.2, and again, I've fielded this 3 or 4 times, but again, safeties are a lot like linemen. You have to kind of know context. Izien was playing in a different spot in 2022. He's playing closer line scrimmage, playing more nickel, strong safety. And in 2021, like that's why a lot of teams had. It's funny how this draft works sometimes, like early to mid day 3 grades, and him coming into the year because he's playing more cover 2 and playing deeper in the backfield, and he's really good there because he's explosive. He can come upfield, he can stop quick slants, he can finish on the perimeter. He's a great tackler. He can make plays downfield, and playing upfield or playing in the box more was not really his strong suit. And I think teams know the 21 from was great. All-star games can kind of level set a little bit, make you go back and watch. And again, I think he's not the freaky athlete Art was that kind of secured Art being a likely draft pick, but I just had many teams were like, we would like that guy in our team. I mean, I'm just going to hope that's the Patriots, right? They coached him. They love Rutgers players. He fits the Patriots mold. I'll hope them. But I think when it comes to 6th, 7th round, like no team has told me like he's going to be a special teams guy for somebody. He can play a few safety spots. He's tough, and he's going to be a guy in training camp that's going to be a bitch to cut. Like, I think that's where every team thinks that. And those guys usually don't fall out of the draft. If they do, they make a lot of money as a pretty free agent. But I don't think he's going to fall out of the draft at this point. It's close, but we'll see what happens.
I think the special teams value is a very, very good point too.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, I think with a lot of safeties too, like period, like that's just, you got to be able to hang your hat there. Trey Dean is a guy I wanted to ask you about too. You know, obviously like 4.75 40, like not the fastest guy. A lot of the 3-cone was exceptional. You know, just kind of an interesting, I don't want to say scattershot athletic profile, but he's a bigger safety. You know, 6'2", 200. It's long, but just kind of a scattershot athletic profile. What's the draft process been like, you think, for Trey?
Yeah, it's been a bummer. He had a hip injury at the combine, and it wasn't totally back yet for pro day. So it was a bummer because I think there's a world where he's fully healthy and he runs a high 4.4 and he's a slam dunk draft pick. Trey was a guy we invited the year before, and I think he is, again, we're not overusing because I think it's just really Izien. And Trey, I would really say like special teams value is going to be what makes them a draft pick and or makes a roster. Like Jordan Howard and Verizon, they can play it, and that's fine, right? But playing it because you got to have 11 guys on special teams and being an ace are very different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Trey, most teams had told me, like he's a really good football athlete. Didn't test well as I hope, which maybe is a knock a little bit, but on the football field, he's clearly a good athlete. And I think that's the testing will probably raise some eyebrows there. I think he's unfortunately kind of made it hard to kind of make the case for him in the room to be a draft pick. I think there's still a good chance he is because teams liked him a year ago, like him right now. But that's what happens in the draft process, and it's a bummer. I won't go through all the stories, but talking to a lot of guys, I'm like, man, if I just wasn't, my ankle was, you know, if I was 100%, not 95%, maybe I'd run a 4.4 instead of a 4.5. I'm going the 5th round. So it's just a testament for Trey that like, hey, the draft process sucks. And it's not always like as fun, and rising the draft, you get hurt a little bit. But again, Trey's earned a draft spot. He played great at the Shrine Bowl, one of the better DBs talking to scouts, and we'll see what happens on draft night.
All right. I'm going to speed round a few safeties at you just to get through some of these names. Some of these guys, you know, names are probably known. So, it's good to talk about them. So, Jordan Battle, safety out of Alabama. Just like the quick, elevator pitch.
Split on teams and how much they like him. I think some teams worry about the athletic testing. There's a lot of Bama guys. He'll get drafted somewhere on day 3, but it's not going to be the 2nd, 3rd round like people are expecting before the season.
Yeah, Brandon Joseph, another guy, high profile a couple years ago, a lot of ball production. Then, not as good of a year with Northwestern, transfers to Notre Dame. It's fine, but it seems like he's kind of fallen a little bit from where he was 2 years ago going into the year.
Yeah, teams have a really tough time with guys that are super hyped because you lower the expectations. Sometimes I think teams have almost overcorrected. I've heard a lot of mid to late day 3 grades on Brandon. I don't think he's going to go undrafted, but it wouldn't shock me. I think he's still a good day 3 pick. But again, when you have those expectations and you don't play that level, then you don't test well. And Brandon couldn't play in an all-star game because he didn't get enough classes done. Like these small things teams start to get worried about. But talk to Brandon. He's a great kid. He's a smart kid. Just maybe hasn't had the best draft process, but I think he'll be a draft pick. But it'll be later than people thought a year and a half ago.
Real quick, just stepping in, like it feels like that sounds like maybe a little bit too, like you said, overcorrection. I feel like I would be thrilled if the Chiefs took him. Like if they took him in round 4, I'd be happy. Like I really like he's just a solid football player with a not great athletic profile, but even at Notre Dame, he was still making some really impressive flash plays, like some high level moments where like, oh, okay, that's the guy that people got so excited about a couple years ago. Like I don't
Totally
understand.
agree. If I told you like what 9 months ago in August that, hey, you can get Jordan Battle and Brandon Joseph with 2 fifth-round picks, you'd be like, that sounds great. I will do that, please. So and that's possible this year. So we'll see what team does that. And again, maybe they're just are who they are, but I have a hard time thinking both of those guys won't be successful NFL players, right? One of them at least is going to be.
It's like, but it's like, how much? Real quick, it feels like how many times do we go through a draft and say this guy's a really good football player, but not the best athlete, and it works out.
Yeah.
I feel like the hit rate on those kind of guys seems a lot higher than
An average 5th-round pick. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. That's all.
So I obviously don't get to sit down with the guys and talk to them, like to understand how they know about football. But when I watch Brandon Joseph and J.R. Brown, I see a lot of similarities just in terms of guys that I think really understand the game. Like they play like they understand the game. They showcase this playmaking, ball hawking ability, and they know what to do. They just don't have the best athleticism. It's interesting to me here how different they're talked about kind of in this space right now, whereas one guy seems to still be going up while the other guy's going down. I think, like you said, it's all about the expectations, not meeting them. Brown's clearly a little bit better athlete, but not like significantly. So just interesting kind of dichotomy there. Last guy, Ronnie Hickman out of Ohio State. He's a guy that I actually kind of enjoyed. I enjoyed watching him because he's a little different than a lot of guys in this class. I think he's mostly a box guy. He's going to be more of a strong safety the way he plays, but watching him come up and play the run, engage with blocks, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's a little bit different than a lot of the other safeties in this class, but yet I don't hear too many guys talk about him at all.
No, I mean, I know he got banged up in the All-Star game process, didn't finish out the week there too. Again, tested good, not great. He's a skinnier safety, but he's a box guy, as you mentioned. It's not really fit for everybody. So I think that's probably why he's not going to be a free, strong safety hybrid guy. He's not necessarily a special teams guy. He's a good example of like a damn good football player who may start, but I'm not sure what his role is if he's not a starter, right? He's not a guy that can play both safety spots. So it's like a tackle, right? If it's only a right tackle backup only, how obviously you have that guy too. I think for Ronnie, he's a backup, strong safety, situational guy. And again, he's going to get picked. Enough teams like him too, but I think his upside is not as high as I thought it could be coming in.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with a game called Eric Galko hosts the KCSN Draft Show.
Whether you're a Chiefs, Royals, Sporting KC, KC Current, K-State, KU, or Mizzou fan, we've got you covered. Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network. Proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right. Welcome back from break, guys. Well, my first back from break, Ken. Thanks for throwing me in there.
I know. I'm just throwing you the fire.
So I think we talked about safeties enough. I know Kent was an anti-safety guy coming in, so we talked about safeties more than Kent even wanted to. But for the week before the draft now, I think as NFL teams, probably the end of this week are going to finish up, the Chiefs included, are going to finish up their draft board. They're going to know who they're taking, and they're going to know what the scenarios might be. They know what their board's going to be. And I think they're already starting to play that game theory. All right, here's on the board. Who are we taking? So I thought, hey, I'll pin it back on you guys. I'll grade your answers, of course, because I love grading people's answers. I love giving out grades. But I want to give you guys, hey, forget who else could be on the board. I'm going to tell you guys in these 3 different scenarios, hey, these are the 3 players on our board available, and you have to make the argument for which one we should take at that spot, right? So don't worry about like, hey, is this guy on the board? Assume these are the only 3 guys we're considering in this spot. So I'll go with the one that I think is very possible on draft night first, all right? On the board, Chiefs on the clock at pick 31, last pick of the first round. It's been a long day, right? Everyone else in Kansas City besides you guys have been drinking all day long. They want to see the pick. You got Quentin Johnson, Mozzie Smith, and Cam Smith on the board. So you got a receiver, a D tackle, and a corner. No edge rusher, right? Edge rushers, all the good ones you want are off the board. Not one to trade back for. There's no trading back here. Those are your 3 guys. Quentin Johnson, Mozzie Smith, Cam Smith. Maddie, we'll start with you. Who is your pick of those 3 guys to take in the first round?
Well, I mean, what's the grading scale here, right? Like, what am I being graded on?
You're graded on your answer as well as if you're correct on draft night.
Okay. Okay, I'm pulling up organizing my draft board right now to see exactly who I have rated the highest. I think I know who's got the highest grade on here. Yeah, so okay. Quentin Johnston's the highest grade on the KCSN draft board of these guys. He is a
numerically, please.
Hold on.
86.0. 86. He's not.
Well, okay. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Sorry.
And your next, Kent.
Okay.
Matty talk.
There's a positional value filter that I didn't have on. Okay, so
understood.
With the positional value filter, Cam Smith, highest rated guy at 86.52, which is just under a first round grade. It's like one of the earliest second round grades we have. If it was just my grade, he would be a first round grade. So Cam Smith is my highest rated player. I think I have to follow the board, right? Like at this point in time, you have to follow the board. I'm a little concerned because the Chiefs do have corners right now. It all depends on where our talks are with L'Jarius Sneed long term. If we plan on signing L'Jarius Sneed long term, I would probably go Quentin Johnston. If we're not signing L'Jarius Sneed long term, I would go with Cam Smith, the highest player on my board. For this exercise, since L'Jarius Sneed's not under contract, give me the highest rated guy and we'll go Cam Smith.
I think that's a very, very strong answer because that is a top 15 player. I will make the argument for Quentin Johnston, who's a top 20 player for us in the KCSN draft guide as well. But, Quentin Johnston, obviously like historic outlier of a 3-cone, but still there's a lot to like about Quentin Johnston. He's not, we spent so much time talking about him, but if we're making the argument right now, he's a big body receiver, a guy with some good instincts in space, a guy with the ball in his hands that can make plays for you. The Chiefs have done a good job of figuring out how to utilize guys and exploit their strengths. Getting Quentin Johnston in space the way that they're able to utilize so many other different players presents a little bit of a different skill set. He's got some ability down the field. Obviously, you want to continue to help him work catching the football, using a little bit better technique more consistently. You have some questions about the route tree that you're going to be able to utilize with him. It may not be as complete as some other guys, but you put him with those long strides on a vertical plane. I think you can build you can build enough concepts around him to exploit his strengths while getting him the ball in his hands in manufactured touches and on some stuff underneath. So I'll go with Quentin Johnston. He may not be the most ready of all the top kind of receivers in this draft, but I think he's a strong player that you can exploit his strengths, and you're adding talent to a group that desperately needs it.
I'll make the Mazi Smith case. I'll play the hard role here. I think that, defensive tackle has been a strength for the Chiefs. Defensive line's been a strength, right? Defensive front seven pass rush for a long time. Want to keep that to be the case. It's not a very deep defensive tackle class. There's not many athletes in this entire draft class like Mazi Smith could be. His upside is through the roof. If he hits, he and Chris Jones for the next how many years is tough to beat. And pretty strong corner class in round 2, round 3. Pretty strong receiver class round 2, round 3. Pat Mahomes made it work with lesser receivers. They hit on 3 receivers last year. Maybe it's not a short-term need. I think for a team looking to go back to the Super Bowl, I think adding a defensive tackle makes the most sense. I'll leave it there. I think the answer is Cam Smith, but I think that's a real discussion on draft night. All right, scenario number 2. The board has fallen off a cliff. A lot of guys went earlier than we expected.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
We got our top receiver, one of our top players left, surprising as it may be, because our board is not quite the KCSN board. Jalen Hyatt is available. Jalen Duncan, offensive tackle from Maryland, and Felix from Kansas State are all available.
Can't you go first this round?
Hey, is this the first round?
Does it matter?
This is
Does it matter?
31st overall selection, Kat.
This is 31st overall selection. I'm going to go with Felix Anadike-Uzomah. So I understand, the need for receiver. I think
good pronunciation, by the way. Good pronunciation on that.
Thank you. So, I've been working. Adatame Adebawore, too. So
wow.
I'm getting there. Yeah. Hey, look, I've got 9 days to go.
I call him Felix. I do this for a living. I didn't fucking call him his whole name. So good for him.
Well, he's a local kid, too. Yeah. So I think the receiver is the biggest need for this team, but I think I'd rather play in the tier 2 of the receiver position than go and grab Jalen Hyatt. And I like Jalen Duncan a lot. I think the best player on the board, and the best player on the board for us too, in the KCSN draft guide. I think Jalen Hyatt's a little bit higher for us, but I like Felix Anadike-Uzomah personally a little bit more than I like Jalen Hyatt. He's not the biggest guy. He's not necessarily the biggest C. Spagnuolo fit when it comes to the density, but the way he plays the run. He was asked to play as a 4-eye. He was asked to play the run a little bit differently. So he's got a more diverse skill set there. I think he's got a little bit of ability to pressure up the arc. He's not the most fluid, loose hipped guy that's going to be able to turn the corner as consistently as some other guys. But I think you're going to get the ability to develop a pass rush plan as he goes on. You've already seen him have some production. He's got some counter moves that he's able to execute to cross the face of a tackle, and he's really good against the run. I think that's a good formula that you're getting at the bottom of round one. Obviously, there's some questions and concerns for me personally because he didn't complete the testing profile and chose not to show his 10-yard split, some of his explosiveness, which is definitely a little bit of a red flag for me. But I think still in the scenario, I'm taking Felix Anudike-Uzomah out of Kansas State. And it's a local kid. That doesn't matter.
Maddie?
I mean, again, I feel like he made it a little easy. I can just sit here and say, hey, look at my board. Jalen Hyatt's the guy that we have graded the highest. I also have him graded a little bit higher than Felix. Very close again, but he's the highest graded guy I have out of this group. On vibes alone, I would love to say Jalen Duncan. I like him. I like the potential that there's an offensive tackle. He just didn't grade out as high as either of the other two guys. So it was kind of a two-man race. Hyatt's a little bit higher. I think when I look at Jalen Hyatt, I think there's some flaws in his complete receiver profile, right? Like he's very much I don't want to say one-trick pony, but it's a very specialized role. Problem is, I can think of one offense that's utilized that specialized role going back 2 decades incredibly well, and it's Andy Reid's offense. So I can see how he opens up the rest of that offense. Maybe his specific stats, production, however you want to measure that, don't end up being quite what you would want out of pick 31, but the amount of space that I think Hyatt would create playing with Patrick Mahomes in the rest of this offense for a Sky Moore, a Kadarius Toney, Travis Kelce to operate underneath, I see a ton of impact beyond just what his production is going to be. So yeah, I'll take Jalen Hyatt. We'll trust a coach that has done a good job over the years of utilizing these speedy wide receivers vertically down the field, and we'll teach him how to, maybe run off the line of scrimmage and beat press from time to time just so he can use that speed as a threat.
I'll take Duncan in this scenario. Duncan is, I think, an underappreciated tackle a little bit. He's a pretty good athlete. I think he had really impressive film the last year and a half at Maryland. I think at worst case, he can be a guard if need be as well, because he can kind of move well enough in the short area to be a guard and work upfield too. And also, talk about in the tackle broadcast, right? But there's not a lot of tackles in this class. If the Chiefs don't get one in round one, finding a starter in round 2, round 3 is asking for a lot, right? You're banking on a Wanya Moore or somebody else there to be in round 2, round 3, and they may not be there when the Chiefs want to pick again based off value. So I think Duncan is, in a situation where maybe all these guys are not your top 25, 30 guys, I'll take Duncan. And then Hyatt, some risk there, but he could be in the NFL. He might be a quote-unquote bust in terms of, is the skill going to translate beside the speed? Felix, not necessarily the best fit. So that's why Duncan, I think, makes the most sense. I would guess that the pick would be Felix, but that's just my read on what the Chiefs might do. All right. Number 3, my favorite one.
Oh, let's go.
You've been calling around before the draft, right, just to see what trades would be, and the Chargers tell you they're on the clock at 21. The Chargers, right, division rival, they're like, hey, we really want to get out of this pick. You can have the 21st pick, give us next year's 3rd, and your 2nd, 4th rounder this year. And you're like, holy crap, that is a steal. That's we cannot believe it. And we're going to take a good way play of the Chargers because we have this pick.
Oh, man.
So you say, done. We'll figure out later who we're taking. You pull a Carolina Panthers or whatever, right? I'll figure out later, right? So you're at 21. You only gave up a late day 2 pick next year, early day 3 pick this year, and your 3 guys are on the board. Myles Murphy, Darnell Wright, Zay Flowers. Ooh. All available with the 21st overall pick. You get just ahead of the Ravens and the Vikings, who probably like Zay, and the Giants, right? You get just ahead of the Vikings and the Ravens, who might like Myles Murphy. You get just ahead of a lot of teams who love to have Darnell Wright be their right tackle. Maddie, I'll let you go first. Of those 3 guys, we're at 21.
Wait, so this one's tricky because this is the first time that I might have to branch away from the board because this is kind of shifted post the KCSN draft guide coming out. Myles Murphy would be the highest graded guy on the board. Some tweaks that I have made to my own personal board since then have adjusted this to where I have Myles Murphy and Zay Flowers pretty much neck and neck here. And I'm looking here, and I've talked about it a few times this offseason. I think the Chiefs can get by with their defensive end room, especially if they're going to bring back a veteran defensive end, such as a Frank Clark or a Carlos Dunlap. Bring back one of those guys, and you have Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu, that veteran, Mike Dana. I don't know if I feel the urge, the need to make sure you draft a defensive end in round 1. Whereas I have a much harder time seeing how this Chiefs current wide receiver group replaces what they lost with Juju Smith-Schuster and McCole Hardman. McCole Hardman got a little bad rap in Kansas City, but he was very effective the way the Chiefs used him. So I'm looking at Zay Flowers. I see a guy that can win short, intermediate, and deep. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can actually be consistent, which is the one thing they don't have. Yes, there's a little bit of overlap with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. I fully admit that. But at the wide receiver talent, I don't think I can pass up, especially in this class. I'm not as high on the rest of this wide receiver class. I don't think I'm getting another guy that fits what the Chiefs actually need at the position, which is consistency later on. So I would take Zay Flowers.
Before I make my argument, that is the correct answer, especially because I think you can
make the argument.
Sorry.
Ken, come on.
Well, sorry, that's the right.
I mean, it's not like Miles Murphy's a hard argument to make here.
It's not, but I'll be honest with you. Part of me is, and I can maybe even bleed a little bit of my argument into why I'll just take Darnell Wright for the sake of it here, even though I do agree Miles Murphy's the best player on the board. I think there's a lot of day 2 Steve Spagnuolo defensive ends, and I think that's the big argument when you're looking at that as well. Is I think there's a bigger drop off with wide receiver, than there is at, some of these other 2 positions. But I'll make the argument for Darnell Wright here, because I do think we can get a defensive end, especially since we haven't had to give up a ton of draft capital. We can go get a defensive end in day 2 of this draft, and we can even be a little frisky if we're feeling like it, because we've gotten such great value at 21 and trade up and grab another a better defensive end if we really like it. So I'll make the argument for Darnell Wright, a guy who played next to Trey Smith at Tennessee. So you're getting a guy that's going to plug in right away, have some chemistry already with your right guard. You're getting a plug-and-play right tackle. You're continuing to build the wall around Patrick Lavon Mahomes. And you're still going to you've got the flexibility to be able to go get your edge in day 2 of this draft. There's still some guys that, the length, the density, the size, the ability to play the run, obviously maybe a little bit more stiff than some of the guys you want. You're going to find some value in day 2 at the edge position, I think. Go grab your tackle, build that wall for Patrick Mahomes, and I think you've got a guy that's going to step in beautifully for the Chiefs, just, with the history with Trey Smith and the fact that this is a really good offensive line already.
Maddie, pretty selfish that I can't make the Zay Flowers argument right now. But
You're going
to say Miles Murphy. I'm like, nice. He's going to say that. Ken will do me a solid and pick Darnell. I'll get Zay in it. No, but to make the argument for Miles, which I think is a real interesting one, is that, again, keep it a strength of strength. But also, you guys got Justin Ford at receiver. You're good at receiver now.
Justin Ross?
Justin Ford, Justin Ross.
Miles Murphy's old teammate, Justin Ross?
Yeah, you guys are good. You have Justin Ross. You're fine there. You don't need that. And tackles you can find later. That's easy. You don't need Darnell Wright. But I do think that Miles and Darnell could definitely be on the board in the early 20s, though. I think they're likely to go earlier, but I don't think it's any sort of lock that they'll be in the top 15, 20 picks. Zay, I think, is also unlikely to be there in the 20s, too. But, man, stealing Zay from the Chargers, idiots.
Yeah. How would the Chargers let that get away? Like, imagine just being the Chargers in that situation, like, trading away from I would say any of these kind of top 4 receivers, if you like them at all, just to let the Chiefs take them. Like, ooh, that's one that could pain you for a long time. Like, that's a bold strategy. So, hey,
all right, I'm done hosting. That's it.
Yeah.
My host duties are on.
Oh, he's out. Okay.
That was.
I was going to throw a commercial, but I don't have a commercial ready to go.
There's no commercials. It's time to close out the show. Do you want us to close out? Do you want to close out the show?
No, I'm terrified.
All right, that's fine. That was Eric Galko, host of the KCSN Draft Show, and that's the end of the KCSN Draft Show. Thank you all so much. We'll catch you later.
Well, that segment back.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts, bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.